You're listening to Thunder Quack Podcast Network. This is the Thunder Quack Podcast, the official podcast of Thunder Quack Podcast Network, where anything can happen. So strap yourselves in and hold on to your butts. It's Thunder Quack time!
Hello and welcome back to the Thunder Quack Podcast, the official podcast of thunderquack.com. You can get it early every Tuesday morning on patreon.com/thunderquack, or you can wait and get it late every Friday on podcast services across the galaxy. I am one of your hosts, Michael Cohen.
And I'm your other host, Amanda Conkin.
We're back with like another kind of aimless conversational episode. I do have a couple of topics specifically for this week, but this is just kind of a chit chat. It's just kind of a chit chat episode.
But there's now, I am feeling, and I don't know about you, maybe it's just me, but I am feeling there is a little uptick in like entertainment type things to talk about now. Like there was a little bit of a lull for a while where there was like nothing really to get excited about, nothing. But I feel like there's now.
Well, the conversation for a while was just this is delayed. This is delayed. This isn't happening. Yeah. Actually, good news today. 2 games from first party studios for PlayStation. Well, I guess Naughty Dog's not first party, but first and second party games for PlayStation 4 that were delayed indefinitely got release dates today. So,
oh, yay! That's exciting.
Yeah, so that's really cool because what that indicates that you know people are seeing an end to this at some point. I don't know. I mean, like it is generally positive out there. We're entering the flat part of the curve in a lot of areas.
Yay, New Zealand, go New Zealand.
Yeah, well, New Zealand has eliminated it. That's
that's awesome.
That's even better. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how much longer this goes on. I think we got another month of it at least, but.
Well, but also though, I feel like new things are going to happen because I won't talk about let's not talk about coronavirus. Let's talk about something. Let's talk about entertainment first, and then we can derail as we go. But actually, one of the positive things I've been watching a lot of Parks and Rec. I don't know if I talked about this last time with the podcast, but I finally my friends have all been saying watch Parks and Rec, and I knew
the show's only been off the air for like 3 or 4 years.
I know. I knew that I would love it, and so finally I'm catching up. But there's a new Parks and Rec episode coming out this week, and I'm so excited. But also I can't watch it because I haven't finished the series yet. So, but it'll be like a nice little treat. I'm in season 4. So, but it's there's something weird going on with Anne and Tom, and I don't like it. So it's making me watch it less often. But
just power through.
Ben is the best. Ben is the absolute best, and I love him so much. So. It's all good. I'm powering through. But anyways, I just wanted to say if people liked Parks and Rec, you can check out the new Parks and Rec thing. Ooh, and on the new Peacock series, on like Peacock, the new streaming series, a trailer got released for a show that my studio is doing, which is really cool. So people should check out Madagascar, in the wild, something. There's a subtitle of some kind. But it's like pretty cool to like finally talk about stuff that my studio is doing. So, cool. But I'm kind of excited for Peacock.com. I don't know. There's like people are like moving. There's still more things coming down the pipe and interesting entertainment based things.
Yeah, Peacock actually released a whole bunch of trailers. One of them was Saved by the Bell. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen the trailer, but I've been hearing about the stuff for Saved by the Bell for sure.
It looks questionable.
Yeah,
Here's my thing, and this was the same thing when Boy Meets World got its sequel series, and I understand that people want to modernize some of these things and bring them into the sort of the genres that we have now, but Saved by the Bell is not real, right? Like even as a kid, I knew that Saved by the Bell was not real. that it was like that they were in a pretend school and that this is not what real life was like. And the new show is like trying to make it seem like Saved by the Bell is real. And I don't like that. But then on top of that, it's like, well, Mark Paul Gosselaar's not gonna come back. He will be in like an episode, right? But he's not, like, Zach is not gonna be the main character.
And Tiffany
Thiessen not gonna come back. I think we'll be lucky if we see her in one episode. So who do you get? Well, you can't have Dustin Diamond because he's gone off the deep end, and I think he might be incarcerated. I think we've talked about that before. I think he's in jail right now.
Right, yeah, I remember that.
Lark Voorhees, no one even knows who that is. That was Lisa.
Okay.
And she's like disappeared off the face of the earth as far as I know. So that leaves you with Mario Lopez and Elizabeth Berkley, AC Slater, and Jesse Spano, respectively. And so the trailer is basically them, and then one of the new kids on the show in the high school is Zach and Kelly's son.
But doesn't that mean that Zach and Kelly have to be on the show?
Well, eventually, it means that Zach will eventually be on the show. We know that he's going to be in an episode at least,
right?
But I don't know that Tiffany Thiessen is signed on for it. Out of anybody, like, she made it out of that alive. Everybody else kind of had varying degrees of success. And Mario Lopez hasn't been on a scripted show in, I would say, decades. That I know of. He's just been hosting Entertainment Tonight poorly. And he also said some incredibly transphobic things about a year ago that he kind of half-heartedly apologized because Entertainment Tonight made him do it. And so I really don't want to support a scumbag like that. And then to add to that vibe, he's really scummy in the trailer. Like, there's a scene at the end of the trailer where he's got Zach's son and his best friend in like the principal building's office type of set. And he's like, hey guys, like, look, here's the thing. I used to be exactly like you guys. I had a best friend and we were always fighting over girls. And he goes, actually, that was your dad. Right. And we were always trying to hook up with the same girl. And he goes, well, come to think of it, that's your mom. And it's like, you shouldn't be. He's a teacher. Right. He's a PE teacher at Bayside now. And I'm like, in 2020, you can't have an adult teacher talking to children this way on television, especially when that guy is doing it in a super skeezy way, because his performance is like super sketch and gross. And then you have a narrative out there that, like, yeah, he made some super transphobic remarks and is a right-wing supporter and, like, ugh, you know, like, ugh,
not nice things.
Yeah, so I'm bummed. I'm bummed about Saved by the Bell.
I mean, I never was excited. Saved by the Bell is not. By the way, I'm pouring tea. If you can hear me, like, pouring tea, I'm really stoked that I have my sweet, Much Ado About Nothing mug that I'm drinking out of my peach tea. But I never really was a Saved by the Bell fan.
Yeah.
I was a Breaker High and Student Bodies fan. So the moment that NBC decides to bring YTV shows to reboot, I'll be quite happy.
God. Look, Breaker High is not going to happen because there's one very important person that you need for a Breaker High reunion show that you or reboot or whatever that you'll never in a million years get, because he is one of the biggest movie stars on the planet, and that's Ryan Gosling. But yes, Breaker High was fantastic, but you're right. The greatest, I'm implying that what you're saying is in agreement with what I'm saying. The greatest of all of these high school sitcom dramas was Student Bodies.
Oh yeah.
By a long shot. Like Saved by the Bell is great. Breaker High is great. Even Sweet Valley High was fine.
Oh yeah, I love
It was
Sweet Valley High.
fine.
Yeah. Books are better, but yeah.
But let's be real, student bodies went there, man. Like without prompting. Like nobody was asking it to, and it was like, hey, season 2, yeah, we're gonna talk about sex in a very real, very mature way, and it was awesome, man. Student Bodies is so good, and if you've never watched Student Bodies, and it was on TV in America, so like it actually has a really big cult following. But if you've never seen it, man,
yeah, you should like do yourself a favor. I remember it too around the same time.
Stream. Where can I buy toilet paper? No, Google. That's not what I'm looking for. Where can I stream? Very different. Student Bodies.
Oh, I love it so much. That's the only part of the theme song I remember.
Yeah.
Hey.
The only thing better than Student Bodies
but I didn't watch Degrassi.
Sorry, the only thing better than Student Bodies is Boy Meets World.
Okay. I mean, I'll give that to you, but I put that in a different. See, in my brain, Boy Meets World is about like I get that they were in high school, like they grew up and got into high school, but in my brain, like Boy Meets World was like a younger demo, and then it grew into an older. They
started
demo.
At middle school age. Yeah.
Yeah. But I never watched Degrassi High, but I feel like that's what everybody remembers Canada for is Degrassi. But I just want to say that I think that that's a misnomer. I don't think that if you ask the average Canadian what the most famous like teen drama is of our childhood, it would be Degrassi. It was definitely either Student Bodies or Breaker High or like.
Student Bodies is also the title of a horror film.
Oh, good to know. It's not the horror film. Don't.
It's not.
Oh, Ghost Rider was really good too. Remember Ghost Rider?
No, it wasn't. No.
Hey, come on, yeah.
No.
No. Okay, fine.
Ghost Rider was a show on PBS.
Okay.
It was not good. It was fine. Yeah.
Did you find out where to stream Student Bodies yet?
I'm trying to like it's difficult because now I'm having to disambiguate from a bad movie.
Right.
Student Bodies TV show.
Ooh.
Let's see. Student Bodies. Nope. That's the nope. No.
I would help you look, but my phone is like only has 12% battery left, which never happens. Oh, because my power went out in the middle of the freaking day, so I had to like use my data to like finish my work. It's been a very interesting stay here. The power's gone out maybe like 3 times in the last decade that I've been living in Vancouver, and I come to Penticton. I've been here for 3 weeks, and the power's gone out twice. And I'm kind of like, how is this a thing? So anyways, I love it.
Student Bodies is not available to stream anywhere, which is a real bummer.
You could probably buy it.
I'm going to check on Google Play.
Yeah.
But yeah, I speaking of awesome, timeless television shows, I want to talk about Community.
Ooh, good segue.
It's only a good segue if you don't call out that it's a good segue,
Amanda. I'm sorry. I know you do that every time.
Driving me nuts.
I did it though. You didn't do it.
Yeah, but you are also a host of the show. You also have a responsibility to not ruin my good segue.
Okay.
Man, okay, it's not on. It's not. You know what this probably is? It was probably produced and owned by a company that no longer exists, which is what happens with this stuff. And,
yeah, but it would still belong to somebody. Somebody would have bought it.
Well, not always. Sometimes the rights just get lost. They just disappear. And with something like Student Bodies, that's entirely possible. Yeah, man, nothing. Zip, nada. Can't get it on anything, but I'm sure that you could.
There were 65 episodes. Holy nice.
3 seasons, yeah.
Oh man, I love this. I forgot what all these people looked like.
It's so good. Student Bodies is so good because by season 3 it gets like, it's just each season it almost becomes a different show.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. But yeah, I want to talk about Community. Community is I've talked about it a bunch on the podcast, but it is absolutely without a doubt my favorite sitcom half-hour show of all time. Like there's not even a comparison. Like look, Friends, How I Met Your Mother, Seinfeld, they're all great as well. Mm-hmm. But Community takes everything that those shows have done well and deconstructs and just blows it apart, as well as movies and just pop culture in general. It's a postmodern sitcom, right? It breaks the fourth wall by acknowledging the genre that it is, and then kind of spewing it back at you. And it's on Netflix now, so I've been going back through it. Although before it came to Netflix, when quarantine started, I started watching it on Amazon Prime, because that's what it was available on Amazon Prime in Canada. And I made it all the way through the season right before it came to Netflix. So I just recently watched through the whole season, and then here it is in an even easier format, because Netflix is a good app and the Amazon Prime app is spotty at times, I would say. It's not as good as Netflix. So I've been going back through it again. Although I did skip over season 4. We'll just pretend like season 4 didn't happen. But you know the whole story, right? About season 4?
That Dan Harmon and something, and they were like, they took the show away from him, but then
he got
really
fired.
bad. Yeah,
got fired. And so season 4 is different showrunners. And it's fine. Like, it's not bad, but it's not genius, right? Whereas the other seasons, season 1, 2, and 3 are genius. Season 4 is fine. Season 5 is great, and season 6 is it's so difficult, because season 6 is when it went to Yahoo. NBC didn't renew it, so Yahoo picked it up for the final 6th season.
Weird.
And it is odd. And odd not in the sense that it's like the whole show is weird, but it's odd in the sense that it is like, it's the odd man out. And the worst part of it is that they knew it was going to be the last season. They decided, going into it, we'll do one more. Unfortunately, because it was on Yahoo and they didn't have the budget, like, they couldn't get Donald Glover to come back for it. Because he was off doing a million other things. He was being in a Spider-Man movie. He was making Atlanta. He was, Childish Gambino was blowing up. But it's so great, because in season 5, he's in the first 6 episodes of season 5, and they have the first episode back is called Repilot, and it's when Dan Harmon comes back, and so they go, like, everybody finished their 4 years of school, right? Then they made a big deal about the fact that it's like, oh well, most community colleges are only 2 years, and there's like a whole thing about like, yeah, people keep saying that, but there are a lot of 4-year programs. Most people spend on average 7 years in community college. Like, it's like a whole thing. But they repilot, and Abed is like, no, this is great. This is perfect, because like Jeff can come back as a teacher. It'll just be like season 9 of Scrubs. And for those who don't know, in season 9 of Scrubs, they tried to basically turn it into a new show. And Zach Braff is only in the first 6 episodes, but he does like the opening narration. He is like the opening and closing of every episode, like he did previously, of like, this is the lesson that we learned this week. But it's a whole new cast, and nobody liked it, and then Scrubs got canceled. But they do that, and there's like, Abed brings it up earlier of like, oh, we could totally repilot just like Scrubs did in season 9, and then towards the end of the episode, they make the joke of like, yeah, well, Zach Braff is only in the first 6 episodes, and Donald Glover like basically turns to him, but almost to the camera, and goes, "Are you serious? Like, after everything that show did for him?" And then the episode just cuts, because they knew going into that season that Donald Glover was leaving after like the first 5 or 6 episodes. Right. So they like just acknowledge it right there. And that's the genius of Community. It's self-referential, but not in like a I don't know, tacky way. Like, it's always It's not necessarily self-deprecating, which I think would be most people's go-to in something like that, right? You kind of have to be most of the time when you're being self-referential, but it's it almost like it can be self-deprecating, but in a way where it celebrates itself, like where they go like, no, we're not going to do a paintball episode this season, sort of thing.
Right.
It's like, yeah, we've done that twice. If we did it again, it would just how can we possibly raise the stakes anymore with another paintball episode? So stuff like that, where it's like it because of the character of Abed, you can acknowledge that it's a TV show without it actually acknowledging that it's a TV show.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. How that's everybody knows how I feel about the show. How do you feel about Community?
I mean, I did not watch that last season that you're talking about. Yeah. So I actually feel like maybe I could go in and rewatch it. But I do remember watching it when it was, because I remember being sad that it was getting canceled and then it not getting canceled and being like glad and then having more to watch. But I really enjoyed it. And so like the stop motion episode is so cool. Like that was just something that I was like, hey, look at what this show is doing. Like it just tends to do some pretty awesome things. And so I mean, I enjoy it for that. It could be a bit much like what you're talking about, where I'm like, oh, I can imagine that would have been some people's jam, that it becomes like so referential, but other people like not so much. But I don't know. I highly recommend that people watch Community if you haven't seen it. I think that it's like, if you like the first few episodes, you'll like that's sort of it. Joel McHale is not necessarily my cup of tea. Like he's all right, but he is an acquired taste, I feel.
Yeah.
So
that's fair. He is my cup of tea. His character, Jeff Winger, is like the intentionally the distillation of every kind of sitcom protagonist that I love, right? Like he's kind of the amalgamation of all of them. But then it acknowledges the reality of like, that's not a person that anybody would like. Right. It's, I always go to, I'll make a joke. Like I'll hit somebody with a zinger and then they'll get mad at me and I'll be like, look, if Chandler said that to somebody, you would laugh. Right. And that's always kind of my go-to, is that like, we watch Friends and everybody loves all of these characters and Chandler is the greatest. He's hilarious and super funny. And very witty, but it's like, actually, no, he's really mean to everybody all of the time. Like people will just say like, I'm really excited about a thing. And he'll be like, yeah, that's dumb that you're excited about that. But he says it in a snappy, witty way. Right. And Matthew Perry is so likable that you just go with it. Right. And Jeff's character on Community is very much that character, but everybody goes like, no one likes it when you do that. like stop, you're just being mean. And it's great because he does, over the course of the series, have an arc. He grows, the characters all grow and become different people by the end of it, but they do retain the core of why we like them from the first season, right? So it's I just think it's such a masterfully, like, skillfully put together show. And then on top of that, it's not created solely by Dan Harmon. The other two creatives that were behind it were Joe and Anthony Russo, who now everybody knows who they are because they directed Winter Soldier, Civil War,
right,
Infinity War, and Endgame, right? Like, they became the directors who pulled that off. And they're actually in those four Marvel movies. There are Community alumni who make cameo appearances in all four of those movies. So I've said it for a long time. The reason why the MCU is as successful as it has been is because at a certain point in phase 2, they pivoted away from film directors over towards like bringing in more TV directors, because they needed people who were comfortable with the idea of there's an established style. We have a way of doing things, and you can definitely like tweak it a little bit left of center or a little bit right of center, but you always have to be within sort of shooting distance of center. And that's what TV directors do, right? They come in and they don't necessarily do their episode. It's like Kevin Smith does a lot of the CW superhero stuff now. He'll come in and do episodes, and yeah, his episodes tend to be a little bit snappier and a little bit more with like the wordplay and that sort of thing because he's Kevin Smith. But it's not as if he comes in and makes a Kevin Smith movie episode of The Flash, right? Yeah. So even a director who is as much an auteur and as stylized as Kevin Smith, when he does TV, it's like, yeah, no, you're doing an episode of this established show, and it's really like the crew really does the majority of the work anyways, and maintains the style and everything, right?
So I actually really want to speak to this because I really love this because I'm a TV junkie, right? Like I get like I nerd out about it, about like how it functions and being a producer's medium and like a writer's medium. I mean, people call it a writer's medium, but I think it's a producer's medium, but because I'm biased because I'm a producer. But something like a really good example of this is actually Criminal Minds. When I don't know if people watch Criminal Minds, but Matthew Gray Gubler is great and I love him and he's one of the like main stars there, but he was an aspiring director, and they gave him very specific episodes to direct that spoke very much to his dark, like he has this sort of like really sort of like dark sort of haunted, like he really loves Halloween and is kind of weird and it's just like great. But his episodes are like very much like there was this one that was like with dolls and it was really, and so it still was the show. Like he knew the show because he'd been on it for years, but then he was able to do his own thing. And I really like it when sometimes they can choose directors or writers. Like I talk about it all the time, but my favorite episode of Doctor Who is The Doctor's Wife. And that is very much a Neil Gaiman episode of Doctor Who, where they just gave Neil Gaiman, he got to work with the characters. And the greatest thing about that is that there's like some intense like plot-based things that happen, but they fit really seamlessly into the story. Like they were able to find the through line of the overall like narrative that they needed to happen throughout the season. And they put a few of that, like pieces of that into the show that is very distinctly a Neil Gaiman episode. So sometimes I really like it when showrunners can find ways, and we talk about this all the time too, that they gave on Quiver, like they gave James Bamford specific episodes when he was starting out, right? Yeah. Where they were like, you are the stunt coordinator or a supervisor or whatever, like this head stunt guy. And he's not a stunt, but anyways, you know what I mean. And they were like, they gave him episodes that would showcase his abilities like the best that they could in order to like prime him and give him more skills and develop him as a director. And I think that that's really smart when you understand who you're bringing onto the project for what purpose. I just really like nerd out about that. So I think that that's pretty cool. And anyways, you can go back to talking about community.
Well, I think that what you're talking about is totally relevant because the reason why the Russos end up getting to direct Winter Soldier is because as TV directors, they understand what I said, the importance of maintaining the style and consistency. But within that, they still managed to make the paintball episode. Right? They still managed to do My Dinner with Abed, which has a Pulp Fiction reference, but is also My Dinner with Andre, right? Like one of the brilliant things about Community is that it is a bit of a chameleon, but it's never unrecognizable, right? Even when the show goes on its like crazy zany adventures and does a stop motion Christmas special, it's still Community. And I think that Kevin Feige was able to look at them and go, these guys can literally do anything and make it work. And then I think that we saw that because they took the superhero genre with Winter Soldier and they they turned Cap's story into a spy thriller, right?
Right.
And then they followed that up with Civil War, which was an undercover Avengers movie. Right? Like they managed to make a movie that was about Captain America, but that involves all of the Avengers,
Right.
and has a very important arc for Robert Downey Jr. But even though that's in there, it never pulls focus from the titular lead, right? Like it like that's incredible when you really think about Civil War, what that movie is, what it does, because then on top of all of that, it introduces Spider-Man to the MCU.
Oh, right.
Right. And I think that people forget that a lot. Like they know it, but they don't think about the fact that, Spider-Man's first appearance is in a showdown between one side of the Avengers and the other side of the Avengers in a Captain America movie that's really about him and Bucky.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like that is so incredible because that's such a balancing act. And then obviously with Infinity War and Endgame being full-fledged Avengers movies, they pull those off expertly. And I think that you see that progression and how Kevin Feige like gives them a chance and then gives them another chance. Like, okay, we're going to amp this up a little bit. And then says, okay, you guys are doing the crescendo of this whole thing, right? Like this is when everything that we've been building comes to a climax, and hands it to the Russo brothers to bring that home, and they nail it. I mean, look, two big movies came out in 2019 that were the culmination of very large monolithic franchises, and Endgame was poised to be great, but Rise of Skywalker should have been, it's the end of 40 years of storytelling. It's Star Wars. All of this stuff is modeled after that template, right? The hero's journey that George Lucas brought to cinema in the way that we understand it now. Rise of Skywalker should have been the best movie last year, but I might get flack from a couple of people on this. It pales in comparison to Endgame. Endgame is a masterclass in blockbuster storytelling. Because, yes, it's the big tentpole movie that it's supposed to be, but the only reason that it works is because we love those characters so much. Right?
I mean, yeah, because the movie itself is actually pretty... like, I don't know, if you go to see that movie without knowing what's going on, it's really useless.
Yeah, I think that if you didn't have an emotional attachment to at least 5 of the characters in it, you would sit through that movie and go, so? Right? Yeah. But if you do, even if you have an emotional attachment to one of the many franchises within the MCU, so let's say Ant-Man is the only one that you actually care about. Everything else sucks, but Ant-Man is what you're all about. Like, you love those movies. You get 2 really great moments in that movie. I mean, you get a bunch of great moments with Scott Lang, but you get 2 really great moments as a fan of Ant-Man.
Right.
When he shows up and it turns out like, oh, it's actually Scott Lang is actually the keystone in this plot. Like, without him coming to them and saying like, hey, this is, I think that we could build a time machine, then Endgame doesn't happen. And then at the end of the movie, you get in the portal scene, you get Wasp coming back and Ant-Man and Wasp trying to attempting to save the day, right? With the van, right? Like it's if so, even if you're just a fan, and then Ant-Man's throughout the entire movie, right? So it that's kind of, I think, the key to its success is that there is something in there for everybody. And if you're just a Thor fan because you like Chris Hemsworth and you don't really care about the stories in those movies, but you just like Chris Hemsworth, it's subversive. But even though he's fat Thor, he's still Thor. And he's still Chris Hemsworth, love fat right?
Thor. He's so great.
And he actually kind of makes you go like, it doesn't really matter if he's got abs. I still love him, right? Like, that's not why I'm here. Even though I think that for a lot of people, like that's a draw. Like that's a definite draw. I can remember when I got my screener tickets to Thor a million years ago, and I said like, who am I going to take to this? And I took you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because I was like, well, Amanda, it's like Shakespeare, first of all, and
because of Kenneth Branagh.
and Chris Hemsworth is going to take his shirt off, so I know she's going to enjoy this. If I'm going to take anybody, I'm going to take Amanda.
Totally, I remember that actually. Yeah.
And so like like there's a gateway into the Avengers for everybody. How do we end up on this? I know how we got here, but like. But like
this has been fun, Mike. We're back. There's stuff to talk about.
But the Russos are so integral to that game plan, right? Because they come in and they manage to weave all of those characters together, and then they do on top of all of that. I was actually watching Endgame today, so this is part of it. Nice. But on top of all of that, it's laid over the plot to Back to the Future 2 while simultaneously taking a dig at Back to the Future 2. And it is one of my absolute favorite elements of it, is that like you've got the scene where Rhodey and Ant-Man walk in and they're like, yeah, no, like this is how time travel works. And Hulk oh my God, Nebula. I'm having such a hard time with names today. This is not an isolated incident. They're like, no, that's not how time travel works. And then they lay it out. And it's like, why would you think that that's how time travel works? And they list off everything. And it's all of these movies. And they're all basically like the Back to the Future rules. And they're like, no, that's dumb. And there's a moment where Tony Stark says to him, is like, are you seriously like you're putting all of like your whole plan is based on the plot of Back to the Future? And Scott's like, no, of course not. He's like, good, because for a second there I thought you were crazy. And it's like that is very obviously, because he says like, it's fine, we just have to make sure that we don't interact with ourselves. And it's like, nope, that's actually not part of it. Because then later on we see that like Cap fights Cap. It's
best. Oh, I love it so much.
That's America's ass. But it at the same time that it takes that dig at Back to the Future, it's so reverential to it, because the whole concept in film of let's do a time travel story where we go back and we see the scenes that we saw from that movie, but we get to see the 5 minutes before it or the 5 minutes after it, or we get to see it from a different perspective. So cool. And it's like, I always go back to it's Marty McFly climbing in the light rigging over top of Marty McFly performing in front of the high school, right? At the Under the Sea dance.
Wait, I have seen that movie.
Oh my God, Amanda.
We talked about this last week.
You're the
I
worst.
do remember that.
You're the
No,
worst.
I'm the best because I've seen it.
Except that you don't know if you've seen Back to the Future or not, and that's just awful.
But then when you describe it, I get it.
And you say that you're a time travel fan, and it's like that's the time travel movie.
But sometimes it's so obvious that I have to just be.
That's dumb. That's a dumb hipster thing to do and say, and
I know it is.
I don't like that. You're the worst.
Thanks.
But yeah, like it's like that concept comes from Back to the Future too, and when we're talking about cinema, right? It comes from Back to the Future too, and it's so clearly on display in Endgame, from like the entire thing in New York of we learn that way over on Bleecker Street, the Ancient One is fighting aliens with a fan, and we're like, okay, cool, that's awesome. Didn't know that was happening during Avengers. Now I think about that when I watch that movie.
But it's like, of course that it's happening.
And then all of the stuff that happens between defeating Loki and shutting down the army, and then the scene where Thor takes Loki and the Tesseract back to Asgard. it's like all of that stuff that fills in the gap there. Of them being like, you can't take that, you can't take him, he needs to stand trial, and it's like, well, you can't do it, and then the Hulk aspect of it and everything. But then even with the Guardians of the Galaxy part of it, where they're getting the Power Stone from Morag, and we get the alternate shot of Star-Lord singing, and it's like, in the context of Guardians of the Galaxy, it's such a great moment because this introduction to the character, we learn everything that we need to know about him from this scene of him singing along to this cassette. And then we see it from the other perspective, and he's screaming into this rat's face, and he's off tune, and like it's so well done. But that's all Back to the Future reference, and 5 minutes earlier we were saying Back to the Future is dumb, but we were saying it in a way to say, like, Back to the Future is dumb in the best way possible. I love that movie. So yeah, Endgame is so good. And Rise of Skywalker is so disappointing, as we talked about last week, for a lot of reasons. Rise of Skywalker is still a very good movie. It's just...
it ain't no Endgame.
Yeah, it's not Endgame. And I think it's kind of almost tragic that those movies came out so close to each other, and it's just the way that things worked out. But that comparison is always going to be there, because they both try and do so many of the same things. And we talked about it with the There Are More of Us versus On Your Left, and it's like, which one of those is going to go down in cinematic history as one of the greatest moments in film, right? Is There Are More of Us? No, in 5 years no one's going to talk about that moment. No one's going to talk about Palpatine shooting really loud lightning into the sky at all of the ships. No one's going to talk about Rey crossing two lightsabers together and melting his face. It's just like, Star Wars fans will still care, but the general public,
not the general, it won't be like as much of a zeitgeist as, well, like,
but
that, honestly,
a show like Community in 5 or 10 years is going to have an On Your Left moment, and everybody's going to be like, yeah, that's awesome. I remember where I was when I saw that. Right. Like, it's there's no better way for me to describe the difference than that.
No, I like it. I feel like it was the 1 year anniversary or something of Endgame.
It was yesterday.
Yeah. And somebody posted that Cap moment, and it's just my absolute favorite with Mjolnir. And it just is like, and it's like the audience reaction thing. Well, and it's like, that is just such a beautiful, like,
from the moment that Hulk snaps to the end of that movie, it's just one thing after another. 'Cause it's like, right before Hulk snaps, the Thanos' ship comes through the thing, and you're like, and then he snaps, and then they blow up the Avengers compound, and you're like, what? I can't believe it. And then the fight kind of starts, and it starts with Thor transforming into Thor, and you're like, and he looks more badass than he's ever looked, despite the fact that he's not ripped, right? Like, and then you get the fight of the three of them that echoes the fight from from the first Avengers, but instead of them fighting each other, they use all of the same moves, but they're working as a team this time. Right?
I didn't even like, oh man, okay, I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna go watch like that part of Endgame when we're done.
Well, like, look, what this is clearly indicating is that we did our watch along for Rise of Skywalker. The next one we're doing is Endgame.
Oh, it's such a long movie, dude.
It's so good though. It won't feel like it. It'll breeze by.
We do it in 2 parts. Let's do it.
We can do it in 2 parts. We could even do it in 3 parts, because it's very cleanly broken into three acts.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, and then like, because Mjolnir is in there, and then everybody has an awesome moment in that fight, but then one by one they get taken down until it's just Cap standing, and like I said last week, that moment where he stands up and he straps that thing on, and he says, earlier in the movie, he says to himself, I could do this all day, and he goes, yeah, I know, and like, kind of,
like,
kind of
like that like old
shakes his head at it.
Yeah, he's like, oh, that young kid that just.
Yeah, but then later in the movie has the moment where he says without saying to Thanos, "I could do this all day. Like you're going to have to kill me because that's the only thing that's going to stop me."
Yeah.
And even
Captain America,
despite the odds and the fact that he's going to lose that fight, he still gets up and he pulls that strap because he's gonna fight until the bitter end. And that's the lowest moment for your heroes. It's when you have Sam say on your left and Falcon comes out and then Black Panther and then everybody. And it's one of the best moments in movies. It's so good.
I agree.
It's so good because I get tinglies just talking about it. It's so good.
Good.
Let's take a quick break for some ads, and then we'll be back to talk about. Actually, I have an email. We're going to get into an email. Ooh. Awesome. So you either just listen to ads or you're a Patreon supporter and you didn't have to listen to ads because you go over to patreon.com/thunderquack and you support us over there. What is it? It's the $5 level, I think, that gets the ad free. For $1, you get it early on Tuesday. For $5, you get it early and ad free. And for $10, you get it early, ad free, and uncut, where you get the extra. I think in this one, it's about 15 minutes.
What? I feel like it was at least 20.
Was it? Maybe it was 20. If you are above and beyond and one of the greatest people on the planet, then you support us at the $20 level. And you're a Patreon producer like Brian Mirowski and Jason Samuel. So thank you to everybody who does support us over at patreon.com/thunderquack. And just everybody who listens in general. You guys are all awesome.
Yeah. It's nice to have somebody to talk to.
This silly podcast is very silly.
Yes.
Yet you guys support us anyways.
I love it because we get to talk about things. So while you were talking about Endgame, I was like, I rewatched Wonder Woman. Mm-hmm. I feel like I've rewatched Wonder Woman a couple times in the last few weeks. Oh yeah, Wonder Woman and Captain America or Captain Marvel. I made my mom watch both of those with me, and there's just something. I just love awesome superhero movies. And I want to now rewatch Batman v Superman, even though I know how terrible Batman v Superman is, but it's like Superman and I love Superman. And every time we talk about Captain America, I'm like, but Superman is good too. He just hasn't had a good movie in a while. Yeah. So, but it makes me so sad to think about all these things that make Captain America so great. And then I'm like, it's like nostalgia that I'm like, well, I could watch even a bad Superman movie is still entertaining for me.
Hey, we watched Smallville for 10 years.
I know. I know. Yeah.
And we watched it because although the show was not great, Tom Welling was Superman.
Yeah.
And he was great as Superman. He was great as Clark Kent.
So good.
Let's jump into this email.
Yay.
This one comes from Brad. And Brad says, Mike and Amanda, thanks so much for doing all the extra shows during this COVID-19 crisis and always having a voice of morality against our current regime here in the States. It's nice to be thanked for that. My question for the show is regarding the upcoming Dune film by Denis Villeneuve out this December as of now. It's a bit of a shaky thing. Yeah. Do you think Dune has a chance to become the next big geek franchise, considering things such as the MCU, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Nolan's Batman, and Lord of the Rings appeared to have peaked within pop culture? And then he says, just one person's opinion, in brackets. Also, have either of you guys ever read the Dune novel or any other books in the Frank Herbert series? If not, do you have any interest in checking them out before the film? IMO with a director like Denis and a cast of Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Rebecca Ferguson, Jason Momoa, Oscar Isaac, and Josh Brolin. This looks to be something really special within pop culture for the biggest flop since John Carter. And then he, in brackets again, says, Brad. Mike, I agree. John Carter isn't terrible.
Okay, good.
That's not really agreeing with us because Amanda and I think that John Carter is fantastic. Yeah. Not terrible makes it sound like a Transformers movie.
Agreed, though.
It's much better than that. Stay sharp and keep washing those hands, Brad in Charlotte, North Carolina. P.S. Thanks for changing my mind on The Last Jedi. As Vader told Luke, you were right.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, no problem. yeah, The Last Jedi is great. So
That's
not a
awesome,
hard
Brad.
job.
I'm so excited we get to talk about this because I can't believe that I forgot. I have wanted to get excited about Dune forever because that book just looks so thick and I just can't do it, Brad. I just can't. But I know that I'm going to love it. Like I know that it's a franchise that I'm going to get really excited about, and the stills that I have seen just seem like, I don't know. I think you're onto something there. Like with the lack of major franchises right now in terms of like films or things to look forward to, and the cultural cachet that Dune has. Like even me as someone that I actually know nothing about Dune. Like I don't know.
Oh really?
Aside from the deserty thing, like I don't know what Dune is, and so I'm so excited to actually like get into it. And I actually don't think I want to read it beforehand. I think I want to go into it. I want to watch it.
I'm gonna say don't.
Yeah.
And that's my recommendation to a lot of people, because I think I do think that look, Denis Villeneuve is a incredible director. His last few films are like unbelievable.
Was he Arrival? Is that him?
Yeah, he was Arrival and Blade Runner 2049,
right.
Which by all accounts neither one of those should be as big of a deal as they are, because Arrival is a very slow, antiseptic sci-fi film.
But I love it.
And then Blade Runner is a sequel to a movie that should not have a sequel. And yet Blade Runner 2049 is a fantastic movie.
Oh, nice. I haven't seen it yet.
But here's my thing. As much as I want Dune to be a big deal, and I think it will be. I think it'll do really well. I think that there will be a lot of people who walk out of it going, "What did I just watch? Like what?
Okay.
What?
Yeah.
Because Dune is Star Wars without the fun.
Oh,
if that makes sense. Because Star Wars is for kids, right? So, and this is always one of my things with Star Wars fans, where they're like, "Oh, I want to see a Star Wars that's like really like, grown up and mature and adult." And it's like, well, when you say that, it automatically means that you're not grown up, mature, or adult enough for the thing that you're asking for, because you don't ask for that. You just go and enjoy the things that already exist. Star Wars is for kids. Star Wars will always be for kids. They are Buck Rogers, Flash Gordon serials. That's the point. And Rogue One tries to get away from that, but that's the thing about Rogue One that I think is the biggest failing, is that like, where's the fun in Rogue One? It happens in Act 3, but
oh my God, I never thought of that, dude. That's just like brilliant.
It like Dune has none of that. 0% of the garbage masher scene in the original, or Ewoks in Return of the Jedi, or Jar Jar Binks. None of that is in Dune. Dune is very self-serious sci-fi fantasy. And it's awesome. My primary point of contact with Dune is actually the TV miniseries from like the late 90s, I want to say, and I'm trying to find it. I don't know what it was called, what it was titled, because man, it didn't. Oh, it's from 2000. It was Frank Herbert's Dune. That's what I thought it was called, but it didn't. When I put in Dune on IMDb, it didn't show up. I watched the whole miniseries. 3 episodes, but like they're long. And I loved it. At the time, it's fantastic. It's definitely dated now because it was a TV miniseries. But I think most people's main touch point with it is the David Lynch film. That's why. It's because there's more title matches. I didn't click on that. The David Lynch film, I think, is the thing that most people think of first. Actually, maybe I'm thinking of this. Well, okay, yeah, so there's a sequel. There's Children of Dune as well. Which, is that a sequel to Dune? Yeah, it is.
You know what I always get confused in my head, and I'm sorry, this is just because I just realized it right now, is Dune and Tremors. Because Tremors is very like that, like sort of dusty and like open.
All right.
Anyways, I don't know in my brain. But again, I know nothing about Dune, so I have no like reference.
Tremors could not be. You clearly also don't know anything about Tremors, because Tremors is about a bunch of hicks in a backwater town getting attacked by sandworms.
Sandworms.
That is the only.
Just the sand.
Sand and sandworms are the only things that connect Dune and Tremors.
But to me, those are very significant things. So
nope,
I don't
not
know.
within the context of both. No, because the graboids in Tremors are basically the whole movie. Like, that's, without them you don't have a movie. The sandworms in Dune are an environmental feature. They're not a part of the storytelling themselves. They are just part of the sci-fi fantasy.
But that is so exciting that I wasn't completely off base. I knew that there was a reason in my head why I thought about them both. But if you had asked me if there was sandworms in Dune, I wouldn't have been able to tell you.
A graboid, but a graboid is about the size of like a Volkswagen Bug, whereas a sandworm in Dune is like the size of a building.
Well, yeah, that's because they're... Anyways, but yes.
It's just like these two things are similar only in the fact that they are both called sandworms. That would be like saying, I always get Dune confused with Beetlejuice. Because Beetlejuice also has a sandworm in it. And it's like, well, you're right. Yes, there's a sandworm in Beetlejuice. It's like, didn't the same guy direct? But nope, Tim Burton and David Lynch are different directors. Nope, you're close, but not quite. Yeah. Wow.
Okay. But no, it just tells you how little I know about Dune, but how excited I am excited for Dune.
That's fine. And honestly, I think that you're probably in very safe territory not knowing anything about Dune. Yeah. Like, just let it be what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
And honestly, like what I'll say to most people is like, strap in, buckle up, because as much as I would love for everybody to get on the level that I feel I'm on with something like Dune, and like, yeah, let's go. This is a different world with different rules, and like, let's learn about a sci-fi fantasy civilization in the far-flung future, where spice rules the galaxy. But the majority of people are going to go see Dune, and I say this because the original source material is, dry is not the right word, and it would be a bit of a pun if I were to say that because of the fact that it takes place on a desert world primarily. But it's very much in Denis Villeneuve's wheelhouse. It's like he is the right guy to direct this.
Nice.
Because it's going to be very slow. It's going to be very methodical. It's gonna like really like you're gonna live in that world for the probably, I'm guessing, 2.5 to 3 hours that this movie is gonna be. Nice. But it's like, it's not always gonna be enjoyable.
But it was, the thing is that I'm kind of excited for is that I'm going to go in with sort of the same context that I went into John Carter.
Sure.
Because I also knew very little about John Carter.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it for what it was. So I don't know. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think my advice is just to prepare yourself for a movie that's not all. It's very little of it is going to be fun, and it's going to be a lot of people explaining things like spice and what it does and how it makes your eyes blue and you can see, through timelines or whatever nonsense.
Man, you've already given me so much information about Dune.
I don't fully understand Dune because the last time that I watched was the miniseries, and I was like, well, it was 2000, so I was 15. So I didn't understand it at the time, and I would have to revisit it now. But I'm not going to, because I want to just go into this. But those stills that were released are fantastic looking, and like, look, you already had my ticket because my space boyfriend is in this movie playing another spaceman.
Yeah.
And he looks so good because he's got the shaggy hair and the full beard, and he's in some kind of awesome space armor. And I'm just like, yes, please put it on a plate so that I can eat it up. because I want it so bad. I tweeted like the day that those were released and that picture was going around. I tweeted towards the end of the day. I was like you can tell that my obsession with Oscar Isaac is real because I've been looking at this picture all day. And it was like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And I was like, I just realized Josh Brolin is also in this photograph. And Josh Brolin is nothing to sneeze at. Like, Josh Brolin is Thanos. He's No Country for Old Men. Like Josh Brolin is a powerhouse too. Like, that's an actor that's gonna like bring it for this movie, and that's exciting. But it was like the furthest thing from my mind because every time I look at that picture, I lose myself in his eyes. It's unnatural in the most delightful way. I can't explain it to anybody because I am a primarily heterosexual man, but there's something about the configuration of that man's face that just gets me every time.
All good. I'll give it to you. Cool, man. Even just now, like the small bits that you've been talking about, and just the image that they chose to release of Timothée Chalamet and the, I don't know who the woman is that he's with, but like even just the way that you've talked about the movie and the way that I know Denis Villeneuve's like stuff, where I'm like, even that image just speaks something. Like it just speaks volumes to the type of movie that it's gonna be, but in a good way, like in a way that I think it's gonna be entertaining. So.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
What I will say is that everything that I know about Dune, what I see in these screenshots, and then like I said, Dave Bautista's also in this movie. He got left off of that list. Stellan Skarsgård is in it. Javier Bardem. Like, come on, man. This is the only movie with a better cast than this is Avengers Endgame. And like some of these people are from that. Yeah, man. It's going to be a good movie. It's going to be very, very good. And it's going to be one of those movies that there are going to be some people who come out of it going like, that was awesome. I loved every second of it. And they're going to be genuine and sincere. But there are also going to be people coming out of it that in their brain, they're going like, I don't understand what I just watched entirely. But they're going to go, because they're with their friends who do get it, they'll be like, yeah, that was the best sci-fi movie of all time. They're going to make a lot of like declarative absolutes, which to me is always the sign of somebody who don't really understand the material. Like when I talk about Shakespeare, just to call myself out a little bit, because I love Shakespeare, but I am not an expert. But I like to pretend sometimes.
Oh, can I say, because I am drinking out of my Shakespeare mug, and this is just a great time to say this, that I do love, if people like David Tennant and Catherine Tate, I think I've talked about this before, they play a really good Beatrice and Benedict in Much Ado About Nothing, and I think you can find it online. It's like they did a play, but it's available online, where they play Beatrice and Benedict. It's just pretty good. It's like a decent version of them. But I love the like nobody marks you as like a great like insult, being like when Benedict is like ranting about something and like nobody's listening to him, and she's just like, nobody's listening to you, dude. Like it's just like great like modern language, even though it's like really old. Mm-hmm. So I just I feel like I've talked about this on the podcast before. Have I like talked about my Beatrice and Benedict mug? About it specifically. Okay. Anyways. No. Sorry, I just had to say that like next time somebody is ranting about something that nobody's paying attention to, you should just like look at them and say nobody marks you. And they'll totally know what you're talking about.
And then they'll just be really confused because unless they're a Shakespeare nerd, because I don't know Much Ado About Nothing as a like in the sense that I could quote it,
right?
At least,
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like I wish my horse had the speed of your tongue. Like it's about witty people.
Shakespeare was the Dan Harmon of his time.
I'd rather hear my dog bark at a crow than a man swear he loves me. It's just such a sassy. I don't know if you don't know Much Ado About Nothing. It's about two people who swear that love is the worst and they'll never fall in love, and then like within like an act they're in love.
Which teen movie is the remake of Much Ado About Nothing?
I don't think they've done a teen movie remake of Much Ado About Nothing.
Okay.
And if they have, oh my gosh, if somebody knows that there's a teen movie remake or a modern version of Much Ado, but like not actually like a modern version of the actual Much Ado. Like I would love to see Much Ado like made in like a modern, but it's kind of hard because it's got like it's pretty like military based. But like Dogberry is so funny, and I feel like, anyways, whatever. People should care about Much Ado About Nothing. The moral of this.
It looks like there is a 2012 film Much Ado About Nothing.
But that's isn't that the like the actual one isn't that the Joss Whedon one?
That's the Joss Whedon one, yeah. You're right.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's all right, but it's not like a modern version. It's like Much Ado, but I hate it when they do Shakespeare and they just don't change anything except they just make it in modern time.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, but it's fine. I mean, I wouldn't say don't watch the Joss Whedon one is fine. If you like Joss Whedon, go watch the Much Ado. If you like the characters, like the actors in that, but I really do think it's still a classic. The Keanu Reeves and like Michael Keaton and like Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson like version of Much Ado About Nothing is just the absolute best. It's
I
so
didn't
funny.
know that this version existed, and now I want to watch it because that cast is awesome. Wow, that's a great cast.
It's so good, and it actually also has like. Anyways, it's just I highly recommend it. It's great. And so funny.
I mean, like what you talk about is very similar to 10 Things I Hate About You, which is Taming of the Shrew, right?
Yeah. So if there's a taming if there's like a thing like that would be really cool if somebody did like Much Ado, but in that way. But even though I will say, like, if you watch the Kenneth Branagh, Emma Thompson version of Much Ado About Nothing, like you will, it's modern enough. Like it's very like colloquial, like it's quite funny. Like Michael Keaton is just an absolute buffoon, and it's just so funny.
Who directed that one?
I actually do not know. I want to say it's a Kenneth Branagh version. Like I feel like it's that classic of a like, because Kenneth Branagh did all the like, he does all the like whatever those movies that.
Well, I think he's probably best known for his Hamlet, right?
But it's
where he just casts himself as Hamlet. But it is a very good version. It's a very he directed it.
Yeah.
Writers William Shakespeare and Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah.
The play and then the adaptation.
Fair. That's fair. Yeah.
Cool. Man.
Oh yeah, Denzel Washington's in this too, right?
I kind of just want to watch a bunch of Kenneth Branagh Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Great. Let's just watch a bunch of that and just enjoy some Shakespeare. What all has he done? So he's done Henry V, Much Ado About Nothing, Hamlet, obviously, like I said. This is where my Shakespeare fanness starts to fall apart, because some of these might be, but I don't know them because of the titles. Love's Labour's Lost, is that Shakespeare?
Yeah.
And then As You Like It, is that Shakespeare?
Yes, it is. Actually, As You Like It I'm pretty sure As You Like It has Rosalind, who's one of the greatest Shakespeare female characters. Yeah. She's actually like quite, I think As You Like It's the one with Rosalind and Orlando.
Yeah.
In
this version, she is played by Bryce Dallas Howard.
Ooh,
so that's exciting. We should do this.
She's fantastic.
We should do this. We should just do a Kenneth Branagh Shakespeare festival.
Dude. You don't have to ask me twice to watch like Shakespeare films.
I know that like if I brought it up with Crystal, she'd be like, "Oh yeah, maybe that sounds good." And then like 5 minutes in, she'd be like, "I don't want to do this." I don't think she's got the patience for it. We're getting real niche nerd right now, which is generally a good place to wrap it up.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel you. It's good.
But awesome. I don't know. I think we pulled that off. I think that was actually. This was
a fun episode. This was fun to do. Hey, and I also do want to ask people does anybody watch Siren? Because I have been thinking about like it shot in Vancouver, and if anybody's interested in like talking about Siren, I was thinking that I could reach out to some people in Vancouver, but I don't know if anybody watches the show because it's on like Freeform or something, and I don't watch it, so that's why I haven't really talked about it. But I do just want to like put that out there if people are like interested in talking about Siren, that it could be interesting to like talk about.
I don't.
Have you? I don't know. It's about mermaids. I don't know. It seems like I could like it.
Okay.
It seems fun. Oh, but student bodies, fun fact, I did look it up as we were doing. It's Fox owns student bodies.
Okay.
So, and it was, yeah, it's so it's.
Should we all start tweeting at Fox to release student bodies?
It was on ABC Spark a couple years ago, but I guess maybe.
I'm going to go ahead and write a tweet right now. Well, oh, man. Depending on what part of Fox it is, maybe Disney owns it now.
That would be epic. Maybe it's on Disney Plus and we don't even know.
What division of Fox owns it?
That is a good question. I feel like it's the kind that did ABC Spark because that's where it was.
Well, that's on. ABC is Disney.
Oh, well, then maybe.
Well, no, because if it was on ABC Spark a while ago, like that predates the.
It could have been. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I don't know. It's like who is it? 20th Century Fox and Sunbow and Telescene and Sunbow Entertainment. It could be one of those things where it's like owned by multiple people and therefore it's like in Sunbow.
Well, Disney buys. Did they buy 20th? Yeah, they bought 20th Century Fox. So Disney owns
its distributor.
Or they're the distributor.
I do love that the Wikipedia article literally says that it's been called an imitation of Saved by the Bell by critics. Like that's literally a quote on here. But
I'm going to tell Disney Plus, you apparently own the distribution rights for the classic teen sitcom Student Bodies.
Probably. I don't know. I can't tell if it actually is airing on anything. Like it just really.
Please put it on your streaming service.
Yes.
Immediately.
Watch them tweet you back and be like, it is. Here you go.
Yeah, that would be great. And then I'm going to hashtag release the student bodies cut because that's how the internet works now.
I know. I love it.
Yeah, that's a good tweet. That's a classic.
Okay.
That's an all-timer. It's immortalized in this episode of the Thunderquack podcast. I'm going to retweet it with the Thunderquack account, and I hope that everybody who hears this tomorrow morning also, well, those of you who paid to hear this tomorrow morning, retweet it. See, that's what you're missing when you don't get the episode early.
The ability to tweet relevant things immediately.
Let's make it happen. Let's get it going. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you guys for joining us for a very circuitous, tangent-filled Thunderquack podcast, but that's how we like them.
Yeah.
That's what we're here for. That's what the core audience demands of us. You can go to Thunderquack Podcast to check out all the other great podcasts in the Thunderquack Podcast Network. Yes, Amanda, what would you like to add?
But just like the one thing that I know is that Stephen Amell is letting people text him, and I think that that's kind of cool.
You know what? Like one of the most freeing things about being done with Arrow is that I don't care what Stephen Amell is doing.
I mean, he's a great guy, but
I had to. Well, okay. He's a fine person. He was very nice to us that one time.
There you go.
And then very quickly cast us aside as soon as we weren't useful to him anymore. So I can say that now because we're not on an Arrow podcast, and I don't have to worry about getting him back on a podcast. So I can be a little bit truthful. And that is purely subjectively my experience with him. And he is a nice person. Like, I don't think that he's like a secret asshole, but
lovely.
But I don't care what he's doing.
I mean, that's fair.
I want to watch Code 8. Like I care that much. I like him as an actor, but yeah. But
you don't have to text him to ask him where he is or to buy you ice cream. So that's nice.
I really wish he was still in Vancouver and that this was happening and that he was like, text me and so that I could do that and then like have ice cream with him and be like, how you never return my emails, man?
Oh.
Just confront him. How come you won't come back on our podcast? Was you too big for us now?
You feel bad if
you get a Ninja Turtles movie and
right
and
after
suddenly
he gave you that email, it just started getting spammed and then he had to stop using it because it wasn't the best email address. Like, it was clearly an email address that he used for like to give to everybody. So like I wouldn't doubt that I mean there's an email address that I'm sure emails people sometimes that's like my first ever email address, spicypeaches@hotmail.com, that I'm sure
that's a deep cut. Oh my gosh.
It really is.
Hey Amanda, are you on MSN? Yeah, my email is spicypeaches@hotmail.com. I had completely forgotten that.
Terrible. Oh my God, I was so okay. I've been reflecting. I'm
Spicy
sorry,
peaches.
we're done with the podcast, but I just have to say that being at my house, like
Yeah.
my childhood home, is making me remember like what a terrible person I was up until the age of like about 25. Like I don't think I would like myself if I saw myself now. Like
Sorry, so you're saying that at 25 you became a good person?
come on, I did. Mike, I'm saying that as of 25, I would be my friend. Like 25-year-old.
I think you're a bit of a work in progress, but yes, you have made strides.
I have made many strides
in the last 10 years.
In the last 10 years, yes. Anyway,
Awesome.
Sorry. Now you can continue your outro. Finish the show.
I can only say that because Amanda is one of my best friends. Yeah, I hope you guys understand.
For so long. I've known you for so long. But also you're one of my only friends that like thinks I'm not a good person. Like that thinks I'm like a hot mess. Like most of my friends like think that I'm pretty together.
I think that you are an amazing person, and I wouldn't do a podcast with you if I didn't think that. I also think that there are some core human functions that you can't perform. And some of those things are troubling to me as your friend, and I'm concerned. And it's out of love that I tell you that it's really important that you know how to cook food. And after 7 years of hammering that into your head, you started to take it seriously just in time for a quarantine. So I'm glad that I got that. It was
correlated with the quarantine. I can do things when I must. I don't know if I had to. My parents are starting to realize this about me too when I can't name basic plants because my dad likes to garden. Mm-hmm. And so they keep like ranting about these like beautiful flowers. And I'm like, I don't know what that is. And they're like, how do you not know what this flower is?
I think gardening is something that our generation just does not care about.
Maybe.
Like, I think I've got like maybe 2 friends ever in my life, contemporaries who are like, yeah, ferns are awesome. And I'm like, what? Yeah.
Okay, good. It's not just me then.
Yeah, you're fine. If you like what you just heard, as I always say, how could you not? You can support us in 3 ways. First, by going to the podcast service of your choice and leaving a rating and review. It helps other people find the podcast, and we greatly appreciate it. I went to Twitter to tweet that tweet. That was such a great tweet that I'm gonna pat myself on the back for again. And there's a retweet in one of my feeds on TweetDeck of Girl Guide cookies. Girl Scout cookies. I have to be correct because we're talking about Girl Scouts, which are the American ones, and they look unbelievable. And it's super frustrating because it's hard enough in Canada to get Girl Scout cookies. Because we have Girl Guides here, not Girl Scouts, and we don't get the same cookies. We get a version of the Thin Mint, and we get and then we get the basic chocolate and vanilla Girl Scout cookies. But I'm looking at this and I'm seeing all these different cookies and those Thin Mints, those legit Girl Scout Thin Mints, and they're like, I want to break quarantine and sneak across the border to get some of these cookies. Wow.
If someone wants to contact me, I can send Mike some Thin Mints for you.
We need to figure that out. That's why I'm bringing this up. But it is distracting me. It's distracting me from finishing this episode.
I just hate Thin Mints. Anyways, carry on.
This is why I think you're a hot mess. Because you say stuff like that. Because you're like, I've never seen Back to the Future. And then I describe the movie and you're like, I'm pretty sure I've actually seen that. And then you're like, I don't like Thin Mints. And those are the only reasons.
Not liking Thin Mints and not having watched Back to the Future. I mean,
these are indicators of a deeper
overall
These are symptoms, not the disease, Amanda.
Okay. Please let me know what the disease is for those particular kinds of symptoms.
When I figure it out. Once I've diagnosed you, don't worry. I'll be sure to announce it on a podcast.
Okay, good.
You can tell that it's after 11 o'clock. The other ways to support us are by going to store.thunderquack.com, where you can pick up some merchandise. I'm trying to think, is there a way that we can make a t-shirt out of tonight's episode? And the last but not least, by going to patreon.com/thunderquack, as we mentioned earlier, and kicking in with your monthly pledge of support. Thank you to everybody who does support us over on Patreon. You're the best, especially our Patreon producers, Brian Murawski and Jason Samuel. That's it for this week. We're going to take next week off.
Yeah.
Next week is our third week, or our fourth week. So there you go. You got 3 weeks of episodes. We're gonna take next week off, and then we'll come back. Maybe we will come back with some Avengers Endgame. Maybe what we can do, if we break it into 3 parts, we'll think about this. But you guys let us know.
That could be like our next month thing. Yeah.
Next month, we'll do 3 episodes, but we'll do like the first half of the episode as we normally would, and then we'll break for ads, and then we'll watch a third of Avengers.
I like that idea, where it's like a watch along, but over the course of 3 episodes.
And then I'll take those 3 things and I'll cut them together so that it can be one and
thing.
We'll put that out in the 4th week.
I love it.
This sounds like a plan. I don't like it when a plan comes together, which is a horrible misquote. Thank you guys for listening. We'll catch you guys in a couple of weeks.
Stay safe, everyone. Wash your hands and be kind to one another.